Updating the shaders across Nuke for the new 3D system has been a big focus for this beta. All the light shaders, material shaders, and surface shaders have been updated in connection with Scanline Render 2. And new for this beta is the introduction of the MaterialX StandardSurface node. Now this will allow comp artists to generate their own MaterialX shaders in Nuke. By default, the node properties only expose the basic settings that comp artists will be familiar with from nodes such as the basic surface shader. But with this new shader, you can create more detailed and realistic shaders inside of Nuke. Now, when you combine that with the new lighting nodes and Scanline Render 2's architecture, you're going to produce greater results with complexity and quality. So let's take a look at this shader a bit further. So in this case, what we're doing here is this the original floor, and we're replacing it with some geometry, and we're using the MaterialX shader on here. And you see we're getting this nice variation and the way that the light is hitting on it, and that is because we have some access to other properties than we're normally used to. Okay, so let's see how this is broken down. What I'm going to do is just disable some of these, and then we'll build up backwards and see how this was built. So we just have some simple geo cards, and then we have the MaterialX shader, and currently plugged into the base value is the texture for it. It's just the base color plus occlusion, and that's giving us this result. Now when we look at it, we can see that we have our color value, and from here we see we have this sheen, we have the specular sheen directly over it, and because we're using a PBR material, we can begin to populate the shader with some of these attributes. So first thing is the specular, we have a roughness value, and we have a roughness map for this material. So we're just going to go ahead and turn it on, and we can see now we're having the proper breakup of roughness for this. Also, because this is a metal material, it comes with a metalness map or a metal map. So we're plugging that into the metal input. So we'll go ahead and turn that on as well. And that's looking good. But obviously, we're not going to have that same breakup of all of the specular sheen to it, because we need to sort of protrude the normals. And so we do have a normal map. So once we turn that on, then we're getting the nice breakup of everything and to give us that material. So the MaterialX StandardSurface works with lights as well. So we have some lights in the scene. And from here, we can go in and we're mimicking what was seen inside of that plate and aligning things in. But we have this nice interactivity that we can be working with. And of course, we can make any color adjustments that are necessary. In this case, we're very blue with the overall look of this plate. So we're just making that adjustment and pushing it into that direction. And the MaterialX StandardSurface renders with Scanline Render 2. So we can go ahead and have a look at the render. And that's great. So just lovely breakup. It feels much more natural. This is something that we wouldn't be able to do with the classic 3D system and the materials that are in there with like a Fong, as we don't have, we just have very basic inputs that we can work with. So then from there, some just compositing to push it even further into that blue, and then integrating it into the plate so it sits better, and then finishing it off. So these are some of the basic inputs that we can work with. So let's take a look at some of the other inputs that are available. Now in this example, we have some more geo cards, some simple geometry. But on here we have a brick texture and we have a wood floor texture. So let's examine the brick for a second here. We have this coat, and sometimes referred to as clear coat. So if we remove this, you can see the difference. We have our specular that is being affected here, and we can see its influence that it has, and we have this sort of wide speck. But then we have the coat, and the coat is a secondary layer that's really used for surface imperfections, fine detailing that we can be adding to it. I'm using it a little bit in an untraditional way here, and what I want to do is, like, let's say that this is an indoor brick, and there is a brick sealant on it or an epoxy on it. So we're going to have a coating on it. Now I'm able to get this breakup because one of the inputs that we can work with is the coat normal. So if I remove that from here, you see we have a very broad sheen, and we can of course adjust the roughness value, and we can tighten it up, we can make it looser. But being able to have that normal map really tightens things in, and we're using the same normal map that we're using to drive the normals as well. And then from here, we can make our roughness values and tighten things up and push it out. And if we look at the floor here, so the floor itself, if we were to remove the normal map, we can see that it's very flat, but then we get that much better detailing when we bring in the normal map, and we can see that we have this directly on the wood grain is where we're picking up that additional detail. But let's say we wanted to work with the coat a bit more on here. So if we look at the standard surface, we already have the coat shining on. So this is without, and then we have it with. And then what we can do is we can add some surface imperfection. So let's say this is, a really worn down floor. Well, I have this map here. So that doesn't necessarily be a normal map. We're affecting the normal. So we can do it with the bump map style. So we have just this luminance. And then we're going to plug it into the normal for it. So let me just look through here. And we're plugging it into the coat normal. Well, now we can see we have that detail, right? We have a really worn down coat. So if we exaggerate this a bit more, you can see where it's dialing in. And then we can adjust the roughness value for it, tighten it up or loosen it. So now we have much more proper variation for it. So when we're going in and rendering, we're going to get all this extra detail. Very useful if we're doing some matte painting work or integrating something into a 2D plate. We'll be able to push our shaders much further. Just to drive that home a bit more, if I'll just look in this area, what we'll do is we'll plug in this sort of wet map. And we can see all the drips and drabs. And because it's on the normal, right, when it's the lighting will affect it. So when we move around, you can see that we have this nice reaction with it. This also opens Nuke up to support open shading standards so that the shaders created downstream in the pipeline can be brought into the new 3D system and bound to any other piece of geometry in your scene. For this beta, that includes the Autodesk StandardSurface shaders. So from here, I'm going to create a geo reference node, and I'm going to point at a USD file that contains multiple materials. Now, I want to just bring in the materials. So for the prim path, I'm going to filter down to materials, and I'll select the material group. Now, I want to apply these to my geometry. So I'm going to bind them with the geobind material. And then for the material, I'm going to plug in the georeference. So essentially, we now have a mini library of materials inside of this node. So for the geobind material, it's looking for a material path. So I'm going to open up the advanced USD settings, and that is our path. So in the scene graph, I'm going to also filter down to materials, and then I'm going to go ahead and place one in this path by dragging and dropping it. Now, I don't want it to go everywhere on the car, so I'm going to use the picker. I'll select the body, and I also need the hood, just like that. Now, this means that we can go in and we can be changing the material using these materials that are embedded in the file. So I'll just go change this to another material as well. Currently, not all functionality with MaterialX and the Autodesk StandardSurface shader are compatible with Scanline Render 2. You can check out the beta page for more information on that. This is the first implementation of MaterialX in Nuke, and it'd be great to hear your thoughts and feedback as the team continues to develop the shader and its functionality.